Welkom terug, jy is ingeskakel op Winslyn. Ons praat verder oor die grondkwessie en as jy nou net ingeskakel het by my in die ateljee is Aggrey Mahanjana van Nerpo, Professor Jannie Rossouw van Wits-besigheidsskool en Malapane Thamaga van AFASA. Malapane, I'm going to kick off with you again. It's interesting when we sat in the break and just before this discussion, everybody's trying to debate, you know, whether this announcement from Cyril was actually an economic plan. It sounds more like it was a political decision rather than an economic decision. Would you agree with that?
Well, you know, with politicians, I think we have to take advantage of going into the election and put them pressure on them to make things that we want, you know, to see happen. So for us, that was actually a very good, you know, announcement. It's only a question of whether the action will follow the announcement. Otherwise, we're very much appreciative of that. So as I was saying, with regard to the young guys who are into farming, but they're only producing on a small portion of land and need to expand, but they don't have anywhere to go, except in the case where, you know, the expropriation of land without compensation is being implemented. So,
Aggrey, do you agree with that? Because we're debating, you know, to make small farmers, big farmers. This isn't a new debate. This seems like a political push.
Well, I think Mr. Malapane is quite right. This is the time for all the political parties to play the game. And the president have played the cards at the right time for all of them as political parties. You must understand, it's not only in South Africa, elsewhere, they normally use issues like this. Land in South Africa is one of the very critical issues. And yes, of course, as much as they have got to play this political game, but they must also be very mindful of what this can do in terms of the economic ramifications. Hence, we are saying that a lot of people are starting to be jittery about, but unfortunately, the timing politically was perfect.
Yes. Prof, I want to talk about the stimulus plan. It was announced with the agricultural or the Section 25 announcement. That's quite strange because I wanted to get some more detail around this plan. I didn't get that. Did you get that?
There was really not much that we can call a plan. It seems as if the underlying thinking is, as Malapane pointed out, that land redistribution, land expropriation without compensation will in itself be the stimulus of the economy. We, however, have to keep in mind that when we talk land expropriation without compensation, we also have to talk about things like buildings and fixed improvements on land, crops on land, livestock on land, farming equipment on land, etc. And we now need serious debate around those questions. And then, as I've said, it is now also urban land that has come into play, and redistribution of urban land and spatial development in urban and metropolitan areas. That is now also part of the debate around land expropriation and the possible stimulus that can come to economic activity from that.
Okay, I want to talk about everybody's calling for what they call the rules of the game. So they want this to happen within a set of rules so that it's an organized process. Are we past that point, or do you still see some that the president will clearly stipulate what those rules would be? And what do you think those rules will be?
Obviously, I think in the whole debate about expropriation of land without compensation, everybody knows that the expropriation is going to be happening and without compensation. But the issue is how. So that's why we always say, we are saying at Nerpo, we are not interested because we know that it's going to happen. But what we are interested on is what circumstances will this happen. So everybody, including people who are the investors, especially in the agricultural sector, they are interested on the how part. I think the president, the next step, which I think in terms of the legislation, they will have to spend time to spell out how this expropriation without compensation is going to be happening.
Malapane, surely it's not in the interest of the farmers that you actually represent for the industry as a whole not to move forward. So how do you want the rules of the game to be from here onwards?
You know, every time we speak about this issue, there's always a reference to, you know, we're going the Zimbabwe route. But the difference in South Africa is that we are following the protocol. You could see through the consultation throughout the country, that is part of an organized and orderly approach that we are following. It's not like you see massive amount of people, taking what they think they deem belong to them. So it's a very organized process. Unfortunately, if we are to sit and say, what is the outside world going to say? We will end up not being moving anywhere. So when an opportunity like this arises, we have to grab it and say, okay, it's about time. Then let's talk about the how. And in such a way that everyone comes. Obviously, everyone won't be happy, but there has to be some compromises. Yeah. But the status quo, we cannot really leave it as it is.
Prof, do you agree the status quo can't stay?
Well, the problem of the status quo is that the train has departed. The debate was still around the parliamentary process. Everybody was waiting for a report from a parliamentary commission. There are still 700,000 written submissions to the committee chaired by Mr. Vincent Smith that should be considered. And out of the blue, the president announced that this will happen. So he has really overturned the parliamentary process, which in my view is not necessarily the constitutional way to do it. So there are serious issues for the constitution here. Likewise saying that tribal lands will be out of this. There are serious constitutional issues here, so we have a difficult route ahead of us.
Like we thought, we're not going to get to everything, and we're definitely going to have you guys back, but thank you so much for your time. Hoe werk die onteiening sonder vergoeding as dit dan by privaat en kommersiële eiendom kom? Is dit dieselfde as grondonteiening op plase? Bly ingeskakel met net na die advertensies gesels ek met Divan Botha van die Atterbury Eiendomsgroep. 'n Klein bietjie meer hieroor.